What is beneath quicksand? All of us have seen the movies. A guy is trapped in quicksand, pleading with spectators for assistance, but the more he tries, the deeper he gets drawn into the sand until he ultimately disappears. All that's left is the dark sand and perhaps his hat. Well, the real question is, are the movies accurate about this? What makes quicksand the way it is? What is beneath the quicksand? What do you do when you are stuck in one? As well, has anyone really died from sinking into one? All of these questions will undoubtedly be answered, so stay tuned, grab a popcorn or a branch, and join us as we delve into the fascinating world of quicksand. If you're new to the channel, kindly subscribe to the channel as well as make sure to put on your notifications so you stay updated on interesting content like this. Without wasting more time, let's get right into it. What is quicksand? To appreciate what it can and cannot accomplish, it's vital to first grasp what quicksand is. Regular sand that has gotten saturated with water. This reduces the friction between sand particles, and the entire mass is no longer able to hold the weight that dry sand could. Quicksand is a fluid that is not Newtonian in nature. It may act both as a solid and as a liquid, and its viscosity or thickness is determined by the amount of force applied to it. It is a colloidal hydrogel, which means it is formed of tiny granular particles suspended in water such as sand, silt, or clay. The quick in quicksand refers to the speed with which the sand changes when disturbed. Under the correct conditions, quicksand may form everywhere, although it is most frequent along riverbanks, beaches, lake shorelines, near subsurface springs, and marshes. You see, these locations contain a lot of sand and water. Quicksand is just regular sand that has been soaked with water to the point where the friction between sand particles has been considerably decreased. Quicksand is a combination of two phases of matter that pack together to form a surface that appears solid but collapses under the influence of weight or vibration. It might be a combination of sand and water, silt and water, clay and water, sediment and water, or even sand and air. The solid component counts for the majority of the bulk, although the particular spacing is wider than in dry sand. The fascinating mechanical features of quicksand are bad news for unsuspecting joggers, but they are also the reason sand castles retain their shape. However, there is little evidence that the more you struggle, the deeper you fall until you drown. Quicksand is often made up of sand, clay, and salt that has been waterlogged, typically near river deltas.
It's a very strange feeling, getting water.
The ground appears to be solid, but as soon as you step on it, the sand begins to liquefy. However, the water and sand eventually separate, leaving a layer of densely packed wet sand that can retain it. The friction between the sand particles has greatly decreased, which means it can no longer support your weight and you begin to sink. True, striving might cause you to fall deeper, but would you drop far enough to drown? Which brings us to the question, could you drown in quicksand? Can you drown in quicksand? While quicksand does exist, the concept that you may be pulled beneath its surface and utterly vanish is just not true. In a 2005 study, University of Amsterdam researcher Daniel Bohn and colleagues mimicked quicksand in a laboratory after hearing cautionary warnings about it from shepherds while visiting Iran. They then stirred the liquid and added metal beads with the same density as a typical human body. Despite the fact that the quicksand crumbled, the beads were not pulled beneath it. Instead, they sat on the water's surface, never immersed more than halfway. However, as Bond told the journal Nature, the most dangerous aspect of quicksand is becoming entangled in it on a beach during low tide and drowning when the tide comes in. That is what occurred to a 33-year-old British woman visiting Antigua for her father's wedding in January 2012. According to the Telegraph, the victim went to the beach to watch the sunset and shouted after being trapped in quicksand, but no one heard her. Before rescuers could reach her, night fell and the flood surged, and she drowned. According to the newspaper, the local coroner stated during a court hearing, "It is alarming how swiftly it all transpired." Bond and his team tried placing all sorts of objects on his lab-made quicksand. If they were of a density equivalent to a human, they would sink, but never completely, only halfway. Quicksand has a density of around 2 grams per milliliter. Human density is around 1 gram per milliliter. Because people have a lower density than quicksand, a person will not sink fully beneath it. In fact, you'll sink up to your waist before floating away. So, it's excellent to know if you ever get stuck in quicksand, you will not sink undetected. Why though, since physics says that you don't continually fall further and deeper, are there sometimes horrific tragedies in which people do die, such as a mother of 2 who drowned at Antigua in 2012 while on vacation, The reason for this is that while quicksand does not continue to suck you down, if you do not get free in time, a high tide might wash you away. This is when quicksand may be hazardous. If you become caught in quicksand by a river or lake, you're in slightly better shape, though you might still die slowly from dehydration or exposure if you stay stuck long enough, or possibly asphyxia if your face becomes immersed, depending on your location. Why is it difficult to get out of it? The difficulty in escaping quicksand is due to the variations in viscosity that occur while you are stuck. Quicksand liquefies when you softly tread on it. Because of the friction between the sand grains, dry or moist sand can hold a great deal of weight. Friction creates a force chain, and the weight is dispersed across a vast region. When you add a lot of water, the sand and water create a suspension, which means the sand particles are floating in the water. The friction between sand grains is considerably decreased, as is the sand's capacity to sustain weight. Due to the fact that water frequently seeps in from the bottom, the top layer of sand may look dry. You may think it's normal sand until you step on it and start sinking. However, you will become bored of flailing around and will begin to search for assistance. But if high pressure converts quicksand into a liquid, why is it so difficult to escape? Help! Your body weight and early challenges combine to become liquefied sand. However, the viscosity, thickness of the quicksand soon grows. The creation of particularly thick sand sediment results in more solid feeling quicksand. Moving around in this stuff is incredibly tough. To release only 1 foot, 100,000 newtons of force would be necessary, the same power required to lift a medium-sized automobile. Your calm body will continue to float, but getting out will be difficult. Don't rely on a friend to help you out. The suction force will most certainly rip you apart. That would be a great scenario for a horror film. What to do if you get stuck? Escape from quicksand is sometimes shown in films as an outstretched hand, submerged vine, or overhanging branch. The fact is that lifting someone or yourself out of quicksand will not result in freedom. Removing your foot from quicksand at a rate of 0.01 meters per second necessitates the same amount of power as lifting a vehicle. The more you tug on a branch or the more a rescuer tugs on you, the worse it gets. Quicksand is no laughing matter, and self-rescue isn't always viable. National Geographic produced an excellent movie titled Can You Survive Quicksand? That demonstrates how the Coast Guard can save you. So if you ever find yourself in this predicament, quicksand researcher Bond told National Geographic that the simplest method to get out is to wiggle your legs around, creating a distance between them and the quicksand. This allows water to run down and soften the sand, allowing you to slide out. Slowly, so you don't panic, and bear in mind that the quicksand won't kill you. It's also a good idea to go for walks on the beach with a partner and to have a cell phone with you in case you need to contact someone for help. While quicksand is still a tried trope of poor adventure films, there isn't much to be scared of in real life. As long as you keep your calm in these circumstances, the worst that can happen is a shoe full of wet sand. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the end of the video. If you found it informative and interesting, kindly leave a thumbs up and feel free to ask any questions in the comment section. See you next time.